113 people on Nagalagam Street quarantined after coming into contact with a COVID-19 patient. President calls for recommendations from provincial health service directors on relaxing curfew. Narcotics worth over 3 billion rupees seized by the Navy brought ashore in Dikkovita. Many communities yet to receive promised relief.
Very good evening to you. You're watching Prime Time News. On to the stories in detail. The large consignment of narcotics seized by the Sri Lanka Navy on the 10th of this month was brought to the Dikkovita Fisheries Harbour today. The street value of the haul of drugs is estimated to be more than 3.27 billion rupees.
Information relating to a large-scale drug smuggling racket which was operating in international waters off the coast of Sri Lanka came to light following an extensive investigation conducted by the Sri Lanka Navy and the Police Anti-Narcotics Bureau. The vessels Samudra and Sayura of the Navy's fast attack craft fleet were dispatched to international waters with the intention of apprehending the smugglers. The largest haul of narcotics ever seized in Sri Lanka was discovered when the vessel Sayura apprehended a ship and its cargo was examined. Following information that came to light utilizing intelligence gathered by the Navy Intelligence Division and satellite technology monitoring all vessels in the vicinity of Sri Lanka, the Navy's attention was drawn to another suspicious ship. The fast attack craft Samudra was dispatched to accost this vessel. The investigation has found that the drug smuggling ring is part of an international criminal network. The haul of narcotics was brought ashore at the Dikkovita Fisheries Harbour today, where it was examined by the Navy commander.
Commander, can you tell us how you came to know of the smuggling of these drugs?
On
the 28th of last month, we seized a ship that was transporting narcotics. The investigation into the ship and the international intelligence we received informed us that there was another ship headed in the same direction. We dispatched the SLNS Samudra on the 30th of last month for a 14-day patrol in deep seas. As this was happening, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNODC, continued to provide us with the intelligence we had requested. They provided us with satellite images which we analyzed, and we realized there was another ship headed towards the equator.
Why is it that the smugglers are using the seas off our shores?
We believe that a large part of this haul was intended to be smuggled into Sri Lanka, and if at all, it would be a small amount that would go to other countries. We had previously engaged in anti-narcotics operations within our waters, but the smugglers changed their strategy to counter our raids. So we have now followed them into deep seas. We have to do our duty as the Navy of our country. This is not an operation conducted by the Navy alone. We receive the support of many law enforcement agencies.
In the past, we have seen 5 or 10 gram packets of narcotics being seized. But here we can see that each package weighs about a kilo. The people want to know what actually happens to the drugs that are seized.
The drugs are taken into the custody of the Police Anti-Narcotics Bureau, where they are stored safely until the judicial process is completed and orders are received to destroy it.
Superintendent of Police Jalya Senaratne, the police media spokesperson, announced today that 6 suspects, including a lawyer and the brother of a former minister, Rashad Badudin, have been taken into custody in connection with the April 21st terror attacks last year.
Yesterday, 6 more suspects were arrested by various CID teams. Among the suspects arrested yesterday, there is a lawyer, a customs officer and the brother of former minister Rashad Badudin, Riyaj Badudin. The investigations had been stalled previously and were renewed with a new face. The suspects were arrested based on information that came to light during this investigation. The suspect, Banuddin Mohammad Riyaj Badudin, had direct contact with one of the bombers. Information has also come to light that a meeting was held at a popular hotel with one of the bombers in the period preceding the bombings. The suspects we arrested yesterday had also held positions along with the bombers in various charity organizations. Information has also come to light that the bombers had invested money in these organizations. There is also information that they had gifted land to these organizations. This graph, which plots the points of contact that we have identified, should give you some understanding of the complexity of this investigation. This shows the people that the bombers had contact with. We have taken steps to investigate all these connections. So far, the CID has arrested 119 people in connection with the attacks, and investigations are ongoing. The Terrorism Investigation Division has arrested 78 people and investigations are underway. 40 suspects are in the custody of the CID under detention orders and investigations are proceeding. 33 people have been remanded. 52 people are in the custody of the TID under detention orders and investigations are underway.
දැනට රැඳවුම් නියෝග මත රඳවාගෙන විමර්ශන කටයුතු ඉදිරියට පවත්වාගෙන යනවා.
Was the lawyer who was arrested attorney at law Hijaz? What are the charges against him?
ඔහුට තියෙන චෝදනා මොනවද? ඒ නීතිඥවරයා මේ බෝම්බ
Information has come to light that the lawyer had contact with two of the bombers. It has also been reported that he held positions in an organization along with the two bombers and had transactions with them.
ඔවුන් එක ගනුදෙනු කරලා තියෙන බවට වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Is there any information that former Minister Rishad Badiuddin was involved in this?
දැනට එතුමා
At present, there is information that his brother was connected to this. We are conducting further investigations. As far as the CID is concerned, they are only concerned with the accountability of the people involved in the attacks, and they are not concerned with their status, profession, or position in society.
නැත්තම් ඔහු දන්න වෘත්තීය හරි ඔහු සමාජයේ දන්න තත්ත්වය අදාළ නැහැ.
Let me now draw your attention to some of the updates with regard to the COVID-19 situation in Sri Lanka. Speaking at a press briefing held today, the head of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, had this to say on the 15 new cases that was reported yesterday.
Today, 190 samples were obtained from the Punane quarantine centre and subjected to the PCR test. As such, PCR tests have been conducted on 788 people at the Punane centre on the 11th, 12th and 14th alone. The test results have been received for 378 people. The results of others will be received today and tomorrow. 15 cases were reported yesterday. The notable factor here is that all 15 are people who were already in quarantine and not people identified in the community. We are testing those who are asymptomatic as well, and that is how these cases were identified.
15 confirmed COVID-19 cases were identified yesterday, the highest number of confirmed cases identified during a 24-hour window since the 31st of March. All 15 COVID-19 cases identified yesterday had come into contact with patients who had contracted the virus. One of yesterday's confirmed cases includes a resident of the Ratmalyaya area in Putlam who was directed to a quarantine centre after two confirmed COVID-19 cases were identified from the same area previously. Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jasinghe said 8 individuals under quarantine at the Palali Quarantine Centre and 4 individuals under quarantine at the Mulankovil Quarantine Centre were among those who tested positive for the virus yesterday. Our correspondent reported that the 8 COVID-19 cases identified from the Palali Quarantine Centre were those who came into contact with a foreign priest who had conducted a holy mass in the Ariale area in Jaffna. As at this afternoon, the number of patients currently receiving treatment for COVID-19 stood at 163. 144 people are under medical observation. A total of 63 people have recovered completely from the virus. Meanwhile, the strictly imposed isolation in the Tarampuram area in Mana has been lifted. Chief of the National Operations Centre to Prevent COVID-19, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said Akurana in Kandy, China Fort and Pannila areas in Beruala will remain isolated. A woman residing in China Fort who displayed symptoms of COVID-19 was rushed to the hospital today in an ambulance.
Statistics reveal that during a 72-hour window, 6 COVID-19 patients can infect 162 individuals. This virus that spreads really fast has been brought under control to a certain level. Another group of first-generation victims remain in Beruala. We believe there are about 43 such cases.
The Suduwella area in Jayala remains under strict supervision by security forces. A resident of the area who had come into contact with another local who had contracted COVID-19 tested positive for the virus during his quarantine period. 20 residents of Nagalagam Street in Grand Pass who had come into contact with him were directed to a quarantine centre by the Sri Lanka Navy. Our correspondent reported residents of 31 houses located in the area were directed to a quarantine centre.
Several days ago, when inspecting for COVID-19, 7 suspects, all locals of Jayala who consumed narcotic substances, tested positive for COVID-19. One resident of this area had come into contact with those who tested positive for this virus. On the 13th of this month, the Grand Pass police inspected this house and found 2 men inside. One was a resident of this house and the other was his neighbor. Ultimately, the resident of this house did not test positive for the virus. It was his neighbor who tested positive for the virus. None of them displayed symptoms of the virus initially.
Among the COVID-19 cases identified yesterday was an employee attached to the janitorial staff of the Colombo North Teaching Hospital. The employee had come into contact with a resident of Suduwella in Jayala who had tested positive for the virus. A group of individuals, all residents of the Gunasinghapura area in Colombo, were directed to quarantine centres today.
During the past several days, the Sri Lanka Navy, through its intelligence service, directed 4 groups that had maintained close contact with the confirmed COVID-19 cases from Jayala, Suduwella, Valisara and Ragama to quarantine centres. Another group of locals from Grand Pass and Gunasinghapura were directed to quarantine today.
Another individual tested positive for COVID-19 after coming into contact with a resident of Varakapula who had tested positive for the virus previously. The woman who had contracted the virus, along with several other locals, were under self-quarantine at their respective homes in Seeduwa since the 13th of this month.
අති ආරක්ෂිත කලාපයක් බවට නම් කර ඇති බැවින් මෙම ප්‍රදේශයට යම් පුජ්‍යලයකට ඇතුළු හෝ ප්‍රදේශයෙන් යම් පුජ්‍යලයක පිටවීම තහනම් වන්නේය.
Steps are underway to take a decision on relaxing curfew, taking into consideration the health recommendations provided on a provincial level following a discussion led by the President today.
The meeting was called for by the President to assess the possibility of restarting the daily economic activities of the country while protecting the state of the local economy. According to the President's media division, the meeting was attended by all provincial health directors and health authorities across the island. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa advised health directors at provincial level to issue the necessary recommendations to put industries, agriculture and businesses back on track considering the prevailing situation. Decisions are to be taken to relax the curfew after considering the recommendations that will be submitted to the Director General of Health Services. The President's media division added that the provincial health authorities have said that the actions taken by the Sri Lankan government to eradicate COVID-19 have been fruitful in comparison to other countries in the world.
මේ වෙන විට කොරෝනා වසංගතයත් සමගම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වෙළඳ සහ නිෂ්පාදන කටයුතු අඩාල වෙලා.
It has been over a month since trade and production affairs of the country were hampered owing to the COVID-19 outbreak. Sri Lanka's labour force is currently confined to their homes, but we have to take into heart that this is not a holiday. After we overcome this situation in the coming few weeks, it is up to them to build this nation again. Therefore, preparing yourself mentally and physically is of the utmost importance. That commitment might exceed their usual hours of work. They might have to work more days on a weekly basis than usual, but that commitment and devotion is essential to power up this country again. The best example is China. We have seen how open China is for trade and production in their country. The only reason why they are back on track is that their labour force is committed towards expediting their production and uplifting their nation's economy. So I hope that the labourers in Sri Lanka will understand this situation and discipline themselves to raise our country again.
වාණිජ මණ්ඩලයක් හැටියට ලංකාවේ ශ්‍රමිකයන් මේ තත්ත්වය ඉතාම හොඳින් තේරුම් අරගෙන ඔවුන් ඉතා දැඩි විනයක් සහ කැපවීමක් පෙන්වයි කියලා මේ තත්ත්වයෙන් ශ්‍රී ලංකාව ගොඩේම සඳහා සිදු කරන ක්‍රියාන්විතය සාර්ථක කර ගැනීම සඳහා
We now take a look at some of the views expressed at the expert panel discussion on the clinical spectrum of COVID-19 and its impact on the healthcare system of Sri Lanka. The event was organized by the Ceylon College of Physicians.
We received our first patient on 11th of March. That is the first Sri Lankan patient. Since then, for the last month, we have treated 145 patients, including 11 pediatric children. Out of these 145 patients, we had 5 deaths and 8 ICU admissions. To now, we have discharged about 50 patients.
We'd like to ask you to give us another overview on the clinical symptoms and the spectrum of the clinical symptoms that you have seen.
Yeah, most of our patients, they had only mild symptoms on admission. The commonest symptom we encountered was just a body aches, headache, and those are non-specific symptoms. Less than 50% had fever. On admission, this fever was a mild fever, less than 100 Fahrenheit. And the other symptoms were sore throat and a dry cough. Only a few patients had shortness of breath and the other symptoms like chest pain. Some of them had anosmia. 15% of our patients on admission were asymptomatic, and some of them remain asymptomatic at the moment. Most of the patients at the moment, they are doing quite well.
Could you add to that, Dr. Narangoda? Do you see a change in the patterns that we see here in Sri Lanka as opposed to the world at large and what we hear from international media?
Yeah, I think most of our patients have mild disease. About 90% of our patients. When you look at the worldwide data, it's about 80%. But I think our statistics show that most of our patients have mild disease.
Could you elaborate on percentages and how many of the total who needed that sort of intensive care and the sort of treatment that we give to our patients in the intensive care unit?
We actually treated 8 patients in the ICU. Out of these 8, 4 died. So the patient who died had a lot of comorbidities. One patient had kidney transplant done, diabetes, hypertension, and another one CABG done, and the other patients also had diabetes, hypertension. So the patients who had comorbidities had a poor outcome. The ventilatory support and the basic ICU care was given because all of these patients had X-ray evidence of bilateral pneumonia, and so because of that we treated and the respiratory failure.
What is the reason for the static number of new cases detected for the past week? Are we following a linear course rather than a peak and flattening, is the question directed to you.
I don't think we came to peak. I think the curve is flattened because of the restrictions of movements by imposing curfew and other limitations, and also by detecting and isolating the contacts. But still, even when it's lifted, I think if we maintain other precautions, we should be able to reduce the spread. But when we start getting people from other countries again, that of course we don't know when that is going to happen and what would be the impact.
Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke about the prevailing situation in the country and the economic crisis in an interview with Beyond Media Network in India.
Well, actually the lockdown has been successful. The government has acted. I must say the health service is doing a wonderful job. So is the military, the police, public sector, and the private sector. People are cooperating. So that part has been successful. But where the government, I think, made a lapse is that they did not get the equipment early in January. We should have got more testing kits, more face masks, more ventilators. We delayed on that. And I hope they are sufficient now, because we have to lift this lockdown partially. And you have to go to testing, keep testing like Germany and South Korea. To keep testing only, there are some way to hold it. Even with testing, South Korea has found cases returning. But there's no way out. Follow Germany, keep testing, And because we were fully locked down, since we were not ready at that time, we have to lift the lockdown partially and keep bringing the economy back on.
When a question was posed if Sri Lanka should ask China for a loan waiver in light of the prevailing economic situation of the country, the former Prime Minister had this to say.
But our problem is that our bulk of our foreign loan is about, I think, about 50% of our debt is really international sovereign bonds. China, India, all come up to about 15 to 20% only. So the issue is the international foreign bonds, and we have to pay another $1 billion in a few months' time. So take it off our reserves come down. I can't see any new money coming in. Earlier, we balanced it out by 2016, 17, and we are on the path to repayment. It's going to be difficult. We will somehow pay this money, I feel, but then our reserves will go down further, and there's no way of meeting that gap. So we are all going to be in trouble by now, if not this year, by next year. But I think the creditor countries, all, China, everyone should basically give some relief to all the other countries. But then in turn, Japan, China, their economy is also affected. So it's a sort of, the effect is going to be felt. So it's a question of who takes the pain. But I think the creditor countries must look favorably at the debtor countries.
Economic specialists highlighted the importance of appointing a specialist panel to analyze and present short-term, medium-term and long-term solutions to resolve the impending economic crisis which will arise due to COVID-19. They also noted that it is important for it to be given the same level of prominence as the committees which have been appointed to eradicate COVID-19.
Once the spread of the virus has been contained in a month or two, the government will have to focus on identifying and implementing policies both on a local and international scale to develop the country's economy. A study should be conducted in this regard. It is important to pay attention to the changes which occur in the export market, especially the markets where Sri Lanka exports goods to. Further, the obstacles faced by the trade sector and the intensity of those issues should be identified. A mechanism should be put in place in that regard as well. There is a need for an organized program to be established to analyze these matters. Although the government has been largely successful in combating the virus, one cannot be content with the intervention of the government in terms of rescuing the people of the country from the impending economic crisis. The need for a knowledgeable group of specialists is crucial to make decisions regarding the policies which should be implemented, especially in a market which is as volatile as this. The reason being the uncertainty which surrounds the capitalist market. Crises can occur internally or externally. For example, this crisis is an external one. At such a time, communication and cooperation is important. In capitalism, it is thought that coordination will occur through the pricing system. In a crisis, a coordination of that sort does not occur between the price and society. If so, what is needed is to bridge that gap and establish the coordination which is required. Our policies are formulated from AC rooms. We adopt foreign policies. Sri Lanka is a country which overcomes any crisis. However, in my opinion, we have been a developing nation for the past 70-odd years due to the lack of decisions we have made based on the information we have.
Many people are yet to be reached by the Samadhi Allowance Scheme and other allowances announced by the government. Several incidents were reported today as well.
A disabled person in Pittagama, Bulletin, commenced a hunger strike today, claiming that he is yet to receive any relief promised by the government, including the Samadhi allowance.
I have 2 children. My wife and I are laborers. I cannot go to work, and because of the curfew, I cannot even step onto the road. I informed the divisional secretary too that I have no means to live and that I am blind in one eye. She scolded me and chased me away. She tore up my form. When I informed the Grama Niladhari, she said there is nothing she can do. We cannot live like this. We ask someone to please help us.
The person then commenced a hunger strike atop the roof of his house. The chairman of the Bulletin Pradeshya Sabha arrived at the scene subsequently.
The
I will inform the divisional secretary to look into these officials. Let's not make an issue here. I promise you that not only you, but everyone else in this area who is entitled will receive the 5,000 rupee allowance from the government. There is no problem. I will take on that responsibility.
The man ended his protest after 3 hours. Meanwhile, a group of residents in Vilprandapuram in Hatton also charged that they have not received the 5,000 rupee allowance.
Many people on this estate have no work. They are all day laborers. People have been confined to their homes with nothing to eat or drink. They do not even have 1 square meal a day. These people go to the Grama Niladhari every day seeking the 5,000 rupees promised by the government. No one cares, not even the government.
The Gramiladari of the Koledanda village in Valipiti Administrative Division in Mathura has been accused of mishandling the distribution of relief allocated by the government.
The Grama Niladhari came here too. If he was not the Grama Niladhari, we would have slapped him and chased him away.
This individual was arrested by the police today for obstructing a public official from carrying out their duties.
Yesterday I did not say that I would beat the Grama Niladhari. What I said was that we would slap him if he was not the Grama Niladhari. The Grama Niladhari is appointed to serve the village. If there was no Grama Niladhari, we would not go to them to tell them about our suffering. They have asked me to apologize. If I had said that I would beat him up, then I would fall at his feet and beg for forgiveness. If I have done something wrong, but I have not done anything wrong, sir.
The Gramiladari had filed a complaint against this individual at the Valigama police this morning. The divisional secretary of the Valipitiya, Tushar Suryarachi, also visited the area today to inquire into the incident. Tensions flared when the officer of the Valigama police arrived at the scene to act on the Gramiladari's complaint. Police also issued a stern warning to people who had gathered the area in violation of curfew.
You cannot gather here when there is a curfew. Sir, you must understand that you cannot gather in this manner. As per the quarantine laws, no one can assemble in this way.
The police noted that charges will be filed against this individual for violating the quarantine fact, failing to heed to the commands of a police officer and violating curfew.
The Rajasthan government in India has prohibited photography during the distribution of food packets and essential items among the destitute in the state.
Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot maintained that the food and ration distribution among the poor should be taken as a service and should not be made a medium of publicity and competition. An official release quoting the Chief Minister said, quote, "Photography during food and ration distribution has been banned in the state. This should not be made a medium of publicity," unquote.
Let me now draw your attention to the international situation surrounding COVID-19. 2 million people around the world have now been confirmed to have contracted with COVID-19. The total number of fatalities reported worldwide is 127,492, with 489,596 people recovered.
The global fight against COVID-19 pandemic continues as some European countries gradually ease their lockdown measures after seeing drops in the number of new cases. Children up to the age of 11 are returning to nurseries and schools across Denmark as the government becomes the first in Europe to relax coronavirus restrictions on education. Dozens of businesses were allowed to resume activity in Italy, including bookshops, stationeries and shops selling children's clothes, although harsh confinement measures remain in place. Other Italian regions, however, opted for caution in easing the COVID-19 related restrictions and chose to delay the opening of bookshops. France officially registered more than 15,000 deaths from coronavirus infections, becoming the fourth country to go beyond that threshold after Italy, Spain and the United States, while the rate of increase of fatalities is slightly up again after steadying the days before. Russia confirmed 3,388 new coronavirus infections today, bringing the country's official number of cases to 24,490, the country's biggest jump yet. Russians complained of large queues outside metro stations and severe traffic jams on the first day of the city's mandatory digital lockdown passes, prompting concern that the coronavirus could spread further. The UK government said that all nursing home residents with coronavirus symptoms will be tested. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said he is deeply conscious that nursing home residents are among the most vulnerable to the illness. British Finance Minister Rishi Sunak warned of tough times ahead as government can't protect every business and every household. However, he added, the government won't just stand by and let this happen, and I quote, our planned economic response is protecting millions of jobs, businesses, self-employed people, charities and households, unquote. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced that she, ministers in her government and public service chief executives will take a 20% pay cut for the next 6 months amid the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. New Zealand's offices, schools and non-essential services have been closed for the last 3 weeks, and economic activity is at a standstill as the country undertakes one of the strictest lockdowns globally. Meanwhile, China started the second phase of clinical trial for a coronavirus vaccine in Wuhan, involving 500 volunteer participants who were injected with the vaccine. As China fights to prevent a second wave of coronavirus infections, 2 more experimental vaccines will be tested on humans. Singapore recorded 334 new cases of the novel coronavirus yesterday, none of them imported, as the second wave continues to spread through the community. The vast majority of cases were linked to known clusters in the country. A total of 3,252 cases have been confirmed in the country. South Korea's parliamentary vote kicked off this morning with some 43.9 million voters in the country eligible to cast their ballots. South Korean voters must come wearing masks and stand at least 1 meter apart. They will have their temperature taken, disinfect their hands and wear plastic gloves. Only then will they be given their voting slip and be allowed to head into the booth to cast their ballot. South Korean Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported 27 new coronavirus cases yesterday, bringing the total tally to 10,564.
Permit me to draw your attention back to some of the local updates. 2 more COVID-19 positive patients have been identified in the country, bringing the total to 237. The Bibila Satosa outlet was opened to the government workers who are employed under essential services to purchase goods. However, the situation escalated there following an argument over the prices.
The argument between the government employees and the officers of the Satosa management began because of the high prices of potato. According to our correspondent, 1 kilo of potato was being sold at 225 rupees. However, most of the potatoes that were put to be sold were not in good condition.
Many predict the possibility of a food crisis in the future. The farmers say they are prepared to overcome this challenge, but are the other stakeholders prepared?
All farmers are prepared to face a food crisis with the support and the intervention of the government, Pradesh Sabhas and Grama Seva officers. We are ready to supply food to the entire country.
The sacrifice this farming community is willing to make can only be realized if their problems are solved. Upon the advice of the Department of Agriculture, farmers have prepared their fields to cultivate millet, cowpea and other grains during the March season. However, these farmers are yet to receive the seeds required for their cultivation.
There are about 40 acres of land that we have prepared to cultivate grains such as cowpea and millet, but we have not received seeds for cultivation. The fields we prepared to cultivate are now filled with weeds. It would be of great assistance if they provide us with seeds to cultivate. They tell us to purchase seeds from economic centers, but even after standing for hours in long queues, we are unable to purchase seeds even at a higher rate. We are compelled to use the seeds we bought to eat. The government pledges to provide us with seeds for cultivation. We are still waiting. Due to curfew restrictions, it is difficult to go out and about. We urge the government to look into this matter and to take the necessary measures to address this issue.
The second phase of the program to purchase fruits and vegetables with the intervention of the Presidential Task Force started today. The banana harvest the farmers have not been able to sell in the Ratnapura and Hambantota districts were procured today.
The produce that was not sold was put on sale at 3 locations in Ambilipitia. A kilogram of amble bananas was sold at 30 rupees and a kilogram of kolikuttu was sold at 80 rupees. Meanwhile, in Suryabava, fruits and vegetables were bought by the state at 2 locations.
We worked tirelessly to bring the vegetables here and to find a place to sell them. Having this location is a huge relief for us. This is a good opportunity for us as well.
Meanwhile, with the intervention of the Vilachi Divisional Secretariat, the Army and the Civil Defence Forces, the produce of the farmers in the area were bought by the state. 150,000 kilograms of pumpkin were sold with each kilo price at 40 rupees. The Mahavalichi Divisional Secretariat stated that the pumpkins that were bought today will be distributed free of charge to low-income earners living in parts of Colombo.
The pumpkin produce of the farmers was bought by the government and we are hoping to distribute them to the urban areas in Colombo. The Civil Defence Force is not looking for a profit through this. The distribution process is done in a manner in which it can reach anyone. It was a very blessed deed that happened today. We are satisfied that these pumpkins were sold. If this didn't happen, our produce would have rotted.
On to another story that News First is closely following. International students from many countries are stranded in Bangladesh, unable to return home. The Australian government, meanwhile, chartered a Sri Lankan Airlines flight to repatriate a group of Australian students stranded in Bangladesh.
Many Sri Lankans who are stranded in Bangladesh have also requested that steps be taken to ensure their safe return home.
We do not know what will happen in this country in the future. We kindly request your support to ensure our safe return home. On the 16th, the Sri Lankan flight will be coming to Bangladesh carrying a group of Australians. We are hopeful that you and the government will bring us home too.
There are many Sri Lankans stranded in Malaysia and India too, with no means of returning home.
We have
been laid off from our jobs. We spoke to the agency, but they are not saying anything. We have asked them to return our passports for us to return to Sri Lanka once the airports are open, but they have not done that either. They are asking us for large sums of money to return the passports. We spoke to the Sri Lankan embassy expecting justice. Even the embassy is telling us that we will have to pay to get the passports. We are despairing now since we do not have food to eat. Please bring us back home. We will stay in quarantine for as long as you wish.
We are medical students at Newcastle University in Malaysia's Johor state. There are several Sri Lankan students here. It has been 1 month since our campus was closed, but we have no means of returning home. The campus is providing us with food, but we are fearful and we are asking to return home. The three of us are public officials. Our ministry sent us to India for a workshop at the iTech Institute. The course commenced on the 2nd of February. It was halted on the 2nd of March due to the COVID-19 virus. We have been stuck in Noida in India almost a month.
News First, Jayama Ratnayaka is going to keep us updated about the weather.
Thank you, Chaturanga, and a very good evening to all our viewers. We will now be drawing your attention towards the weather situation here in Sri Lanka. Earlier today, the Department of Meteorology issued a warning for heavy rain and lightning, and in this warning it says thunder showers accompanied by severe lightning and Heavy falls above 100 millimeters can be expected in the provinces of Western, Sabragamua, Central, Northwestern, Uva and Southern provinces. Now, through this warning, the Department of Meteorology also said there may be temporary localized strong winds accompanied by thunder showers. Meanwhile, the Disaster Management Center has issued pre-early warnings on landslides for the districts of Ratnapura, Kalutara, Matara and Kegol. The DMC has also informed the Kandy and Nuwara districts to be on alert regarding possible landslide threats. The DMC also reported that 245 houses in the Putlam district have been damaged owing to strong winds. Now, Newsfirst has also received reports of several other areas in the country being battered by strong winds. Let's take a look.
Several incidents of houses being damaged have been reported as a result of gale force winds accompanied by heavy showers which blew across Mahava, Nettipalagama and Kaikavala last night. Our correspondent said several plantations, including banana and coconut plantations, have been destroyed.
Thank you, Jamal, for the weather update. A fatal collision involving two buses and a lorry carrying vegetables was reported in Varakapala along the Colombo-Kandy road today. Newsfirst received the following footage recorded on a mobile phone at the scene of the collision. Sri Lanka police issued a statement noting that the collision occurred around 4:50 p.m. today. 29 people who were injured in the collision have been admitted to the Varakapula hospital. The driver of the lorry was killed in the collision. Now, the debate regarding the general election has not died down even amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Will the general election be held? Can Parliament be reconvened? Here are some of the views expressed in the political arena.
The state apparatus, including the health sector and the defence sector, have managed to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and related deaths. If an election is held, all of these efforts will be in vain. It is not suitable to hold an election putting people's lives at risk. We stand against risking the lives of the people in order for certain factions to further their political agenda. They are scared to face an election, hence they are attempting to postpone the election until September, using the coronavirus as a scapegoat. Holding the election by the 2nd of June will be impossible if the coronavirus is not contained through the month of May. However, it is evident that the virus is being contained each passing day. We are winning this fight. If we weren't, we could not have confirmed a date for universities and schools to reopen. We will hold the election before the 2nd of June and fulfill the constitutional obligations as well. An election is not merely an occasion where people will arrive at a polling centre and exercise their franchise. An election process includes candidates rallying people to one place. If that happens, we would be disregarding the sacrifice the people have made by staying at home for a month. We are not ready to conduct this election disregarding the safety of the people. We could be leading our country towards grave danger if we hold a sudden election without the green light of the medical professionals and the WHO.
හදිසි මැතිවරණයකට යෑම තුලින් විශාල විනාශයකට අපි පාරකපන්නට පුළුවන්.
The government has neither decided to hold an election nor does it have any intention to do so. That is why the government did not intervene or object to the decision made by the Commission to postpone the election indefinitely. Nowhere have we mentioned that we want to hold an election disregarding the situation in the country. However, if the election is not held by the 25th of this month, as per Section 113 of the Parliamentary Elections Act, the President will be vested with the power to decide on a fresh date to hold the election. Since that day has not passed as yet, the President does not wield that power.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයට දිනයක් නියම කරන්න.
අපි මැතිවරණයට බය නැහැ.
We are not afraid to face an election. However, the government is afraid of the election being postponed. The government understands they would be at a disadvantage if the election is postponed. They are attempting to hold an election in a hurry and obtain a result.
වෙලා තියෙන මේ හොදාගෙන යෑම නවත්ව ගන්න ඉක්මනින් මැතිවරණයක් තියලා ඉක්මනින් ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලයක් ගන්න තමයි මේ උත්සාහ කරන්නේ.
National organizer of the All Ceylon Farmers Federation, Namal Karunaratne, explained the situation in the country through social media.
නවසීලන්තේ ගත්තොත් එහෙම රටේ නායකයා ඇතුළු කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය තමුන්ගේ වැටුපෙන් 20% කපා
New Zealand has cut the salaries of the PM and the cabinet members by 20%. In India, the pay of the PM, cabinet and the MPs has been reduced. A few countries have also followed this practice. However, the cabinet ministers in our country have not shown this example. The former PMs and the presidents get different salaries. However, those who work as hired laborers do not get their salary. Carpenters, potters and three-wheeler drivers do not have a proper income. Even in the private sector, those who work in the companies for fixed salaries don't have their pay. Not only that, even the factories can't pay the wages of their workers. Because of that, they have to go for pay cuts. They can only pay a part of the salary. Paying that is also difficult. Because of that, the production process of the government has fallen. It is the responsibility of the government to plan the production process according to the necessary health conditions.
තරම මේ සෞඛ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්ති වලට අනුගත වෙන විදිහටත් රටේ නිෂ්පාදන ක්‍රියාවලිය ඉදිරියට යන විදිහටත් මේක සැලසුම් කිරීමේ වගකීමකුත් ආණ්ඩුවට තිබෙනවා.
The General Secretary of the Samadhi Janaballah, Ranjit Madhuma Bandara, says it is a farce to conduct an election when it is impossible to carry out any activities connected to the election.
In a letter addressed to the chairman of the Elections Commission of Sri Lanka, Madhuma Bandara voiced the concurrence of the Samadhi Janaballah with the stance of the chairman of the Elections Commission. He adds that at this time there is much that can be done for the people with the enormous sum of money that would cost to hold an election. Madhuma Bandara requests the chairman of the Elections Commission to grant an opportunity for all party leaders and secretaries to hold a meeting on the current situation.
Shifting your attention to some of the international news updates, US President Donald Trump has said he is going to halt funding to the World Health Organization or the WHO because it has failed in its basic duty in its response to the coronavirus outbreak. He accused the UN agency of mismanaging and covering up the spread of the virus after it emerged in China and said it must be held accountable.
In response, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it was, and I quote, not the time, unquote, to cut funds to the World Health Organization. Trump has been under fire for his own handling of the pandemic. He has sought to deflect persistent criticism that he acted too slowly to stop the virus's spread by pointing to his decision in late January to place restrictions on travel from China. He has accused the WHO of having criticized that decision and of being biased towards China more generally. Trump told a news conference at the White House today, and I quote, I am directing my administration to halt funding while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus, unquote. Trump also accused the WHO of having failed to adequately assess the outbreak when it first emerged in the city of Wuhan. The US is the global health body's largest single funder and gave it more than $400 million in 2019. A decision on whether the US resumes funding will be made after the review, which Trump said would last 60 to 90 days. The WHO is yet to directly respond, but UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the international community should be uniting in solidarity to stop this virus. He added, and I quote, it is my belief that the World Health Organization must be supported as it is absolutely critical to the world's efforts to win the war against COVID-19, unquote. Germany's foreign minister tweeted that strengthening the underfunded WHO was one of the best investments that could be made at this time. Bill Gates, the billionaire founder of Microsoft and celebrated philanthropist, said on Twitter, and I quote, halting funding for the World Health Organization during a world health crisis is as dangerous as it sounds, unquote. The US has by far the highest number of coronavirus cases and deaths worldwide, with more than 600,000 cases and 26,000 deaths. Trump told reporters, quote, had the WHO done its job to get medical experts into China to objectively assess the situation on the ground and to call out China's lack of transparency, the outbreak could have been contained as it soars with very little death. This would have saved thousands of lives and avoided worldwide economic damage. Instead, The WHO willingly took China's assurances to face value and defended the actions of the Chinese government, unquote. Chinese officials initially covered up the outbreak of the virus in Wuhan and punished whistleblowers who tried to raise the alarm. The World Health Organization experts were only allowed to visit China and investigate the outbreak on the 10th of February, by which time the country had more than 40,000 cases.
Some inspiring words there. The overwhelming response to the Gammadda Rise Up Sri Lanka song, an initiative to promote hope among the public for the recovery of the country, continues to grow. We leave you tonight with the Rise Up Sri Lanka song. We thank Brian D. Cruz, our sign language interpreter, for joining us this evening, and of course our producer Tarusha Kumar Singer. Thank you and good night.
පට අතරින් හිනහි නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා සැක සංකා භාරක අතරි නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා හිතමු ඉදිරියම එකවන් වන නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා We must unite and march ahead. Arise Sri Lankans now.
Gammadda Nagitimu Sri Lanka.